welcome to the Moonshine Jesus Show. You're joining us for our show today where we'll be talking about the latest Fantastic Four movie, the newest from Marvel, Fantastic Four First Steps. I am joined, as always, by my good buddy, Caleb. How are we doing today, Caleb?
I'm doing great today, Mark, and ready to talk about Fantastic Four. I can't wait to get into this.
Ready to spoil this for everybody?
Oh, absolutely. You know,
So
it's been
that
out
is
for
your
a week or something. I'm
right.
ready.
That's your not so gentle reminder that this will not be a spoiler-free show. We will be spoiling parts of the show. So if you haven't seen it and want to and don't like spoilers, pause it right here. Come back and catch up with us later. Also want to remind you that we're brought to you by the Center for Progressive Christianity. Great place for all your progressive Christian needs. Encourage you to check them out at progressivechristianity.org. We're also sponsored by the Progressive Christian Alliance, which is a diverse, inclusive community reclaiming faith through justice, compassion, and radical welcome, as well as the Christian left, where following Jesus means standing up for the poor, the oppressed, and the truth, no matter how unpopular it gets. Well, I'm excited about this, and we can, as we dig in the next segment, we can talk about why I'm excited about it. But before we go too much further, we do need some adult beverages to help us make our way through these efforts. So I'm curious, what adult beverage have you brought with you today, Caleb?
Today, I have got the Galactus, Mark, and it is made with red vermouth and ginger ale and lime juice. But what I'm especially excited about is that it is representative of the death that he brings wherever he goes with the skull. So that's what I'm drinking today. How about you, Mark?
Well, my favorite character when I was a kid, and it turned out in this movie, was The Thing. So I am having a drink called The Thing. It is bourbon, Grand Marnier, simple syrup, and some orange bitters, and so it looks the color of The Thing. So I'm excited about it because it happens to be a drink that I used to make. I used to call it the easy old fashioned. So I'm pretty excited about getting to enjoy this today. So
cheers.
Cheers to you. We'll take a quick drop. We'll catch everybody on the other side. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Won't you shine a light?
Welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We are entering our geeking out section where we will talk a little bit about Fantastic Four First Steps. We'll geek out a bit, and then after the segment, we'll get into the real weighty theological and political stuff. But we do have to geek out, especially about a fantastic film like Fantastic Four First Steps. So this is the second reboot of Marvel's First Family, following the mid-2000s film and then the failure of the 2015 reboot. This one takes place on Earth 828 in the multiverse in 1964 in a retro-futuristic Earth. And we see our heroes 4 years after gaining their powers, now faced with the new threat of Galactus and his harbinger, Silver Surfer. So, Mark, I want to start off with a very important question, the question that everyone has been debating. Which is better, Mark, Fantastic Four or Ant-Man Quantumania? Which do you think is the better Marvel movie?
It's such a tight race, but I'm going to just barely give the advantage to Ant-Man.
Just barely. Hey, look, okay.
It's a little advantage. It's a little advantage because he's an ant. No.
In game, Marvel has kind of been struggling to find its footing. And we've had some good ones. Spider-Man was good.
Yeah.
Thunderbolts was good.
Really good.
Doctor Strange was okay. And then we've had some that were really bad, like Quantumania and Madam Web. Is this the movie that Marvel needs to stabilize the MCU?
It is the movie that should stabilize Marvel, but the next two big Marvels are the Avengers, and they're going to go. They've already mapped these out.
Yeah.
and they will have mapped them out based on the old Avengers movies and the old schemes and the old color palettes and the old action, how we do action. So I think we're going to unfortunately take a few steps back. This should be the roadmap forward. And
Mhm.
it might be in a few years,
Yeah.
but I'm very, very worried, very concerned that they're just going to follow the old formula for the next two Avenger movies. And that's sad because this felt so fresh and new and inviting and joyful, and there was just so many good things about it, didn't you think?
Yes, I mean, I thought that one of the things that was really fun about this was just the approach was something different than we typically
Hmm.
see in these kinds of movies,
Oh yeah.
and you're right, the color too, the
Oh wow.
vibrancy. I think that's something that we've seen a lot of some vibrancy and a sense of real newness, and I think that that's something good. I think we also saw something that we've been lacking, which is good writing, something that
Oh
we've
yeah.
talked a lot about here. So I would love to continue to see good writing. So yeah, I thought that this was a great step for that reason. I thought it was a departure, and I appreciated that as. So, Mark, from the way that you were talking, it sounds as a Fantastic Four fan. Is
Yeah,
that right?
Fantastic Four was my favorite superheroes. There was something about it that really appealed to me, and I wasn't like a voracious comic book reader, but I was a comic book reader, and
Yeah.
I was obsessed with Fantastic Four. If there was a comic on them, I was going to read it. If a young adult book was written about, because back then you actually did have some that were just novels that were written, and I was going to read
Yeah.
those too. So yeah, I'm highly invested and have been my whole life. And honestly, it was just so because the director was the person from WandaVision, I felt like we were going to be okay.
Uh-huh.
But there was something
Yeah.
deep inside of me that because of all of the disappointments that I've had from all these movies, I was like, "Oh, please don't have them." And then,
Are
and then,
we? Are we really going to be
right, and then we
okay?
saw Superman.
So
We
yeah.
had saw
Yeah.
Superman, and I think off the screen, I had this conversation with you where I was like, "I'm a little worried now because Superman was so good." Is
Yeah.
Fantastic Four just even if it's pretty good, not going to meet up to my expectations? And that would have crushed me, man. That would have crushed me. How about you? How Fantastic Four a childhood thing for you, or was it something you didn't really pay much attention to one way or the other? Or
It was not a big part of my childhood. There were not there wasn't any real media when I was growing up. I mean, I guess there was that unreleased thing in
yeah,
the early 90s, the German American movie, but I mean, obviously I didn't see that. And so my introduction to the Fantastic Four was actually in those mid 2000 movies, which were fair to
but
middling,
and
you
and
know,
that and that's you being
as we
generous.
yeah, yeah, that was me using a Midwestern
Midland.
phrase
Yeah,
to,
you
give
have
a
recently
Midwestern
been
insult.
visiting home, so it's not surprising that some of
I
that popped
have,
out.
so it's yeah, some of it's come back, and so, yeah, it's so so Fantastic Four really wasn't something that was an important thing
Mm,
for me, but, but I was excited about this movie, and it didn't disappoint. I was happy to see how it came together, and so, Mark, as a
yeah,
fan, do you think they did a good
I think
job? Was this a fair representation? Was this the family you fell in love with?
absolutely. I think
Yeah.
they did an exceptional job. There are certain things about it that aren't quite what was the old traditional in terms of character traits
Yeah.
from several of the characters,
Mhm.
but they got their core very right, and they got the family dynamic pretty well. I loved those seeing Johnny and Thing go at it just a little bit more like brothers kind of thing because there was a
Mhm.
little bit more of that angst and give and take between makeshift brothers that would go on in the comics, and
Yeah.
I think we would have benefited a little bit more from that in this movie. But
Yeah.
in general, the casting, I was not a big fan of two of the castings. For The Thing and for Mr. Fantastic, I felt like when I heard who they cast, I was like, you got it wrong. They don't even look like the characters.
Yeah.
They ended up being my two, I was about to say my two favorite characters, but the truth is everybody was great. Julia Gardner as Shiloh LaBelle, my God, was amazing. Like everyone just,
she was great.
The casting director in this was brilliant. Like saw things that other folks weren't seeing, and it worked out so well. All these characters felt real and fleshed out and honest and true to a big part of what the historical comics had them being. So as a person who wasn't really familiar with all that, how did it play out for you?
I thought it went really well. I mean, obviously I didn't have much to compare them to, and so I appreciate all the actors. I thought they did a good job. I felt like I got a good sense of them. I thought they were compelling. I thought they had good chemistry on screen, and so I'm glad you brought up casting, because that was one of my questions to you, in particularly around Mr. Fantastic. I mean, Pedro Pascal is everywhere these days. I think there had been some hope that maybe John Krasinski might be the next Mr. Fantastic after seeing him in the Multiverse of Madness. And so, what do you think about Pedro Pascal?
I did not like that casting. A matter of fact, I was joking with the.
That's why I was.
I definitely did.
Why I
was joking with my the guy who cuts my hair today. Said, I think we've gotten to the point, if you come out with something sci-fi or fantasy, you're not allowed to do it unless you cast Pedro in it somehow. Like, he's got to be in it. They're not going to allow you to do it. But yeah, I did not like him. I thought his stature was all wrong. His facial makeup just, to me, felt like it was off. And I felt like we knew him too well from too many other sci-fi fantasy things right now that it was going to be distracting. Boy, was I wrong. I bought him as Mr. Fantastic within the first few minutes. They didn't let Mr. Charisma do so much charisma, and he shifted so well into being Reed and kind of inward to himself and high thinker, and I was impressed. I was so very impressed. It took minutes for me to not care that it was Pedro and recognize how good he was. So
yeah, I agree. I thought,
are you getting tired of seeing him?
No. No,
fair enough.
I'm cool with Pedro being everywhere. And I really liked. I did notice that he was very different. Like everything that he's in, I feel like he does commit 1,000% to what he's doing.
Agree.
And so I appreciated the commitment as well, and his commitment to character and playing diverse, not just being who he's been in other series as well. I would say, Mark, the one thing that maybe bothered me a little bit was the pacing of the film, and particularly at the beginning. And maybe
Completely
because
agree.
I don't have the background in Fantastic Four that I wanted to see, I didn't care so much about the family dynamics. I didn't care so much about, the characters. It seemed like there was some expectation of, knowing. I felt like I already sooner. Maybe it's also because I was tired. No, but how did you feel about the pacing?
No, I think you're right. My immediate assessment, because yes, I like the movie. I've seen it 3 times already. I've seen it in 3D, I've seen it regular, and I've seen it in IMAX. But I have to say, after my first viewing, that was my exact critique, was that I felt like the pacing, and I couldn't quite put my finger on why, but I felt like the pacing in the first third of the movie bumbled a little bit. It felt like it was trying to find its footing, and sometimes that slowed it down more than it needed to. By the time we hit a third in, it started figuring out its pacing, and it kind of didn't let up at that point. Once it found it, we were good. But I agree, it was the pacing could have been a little bit better at the beginning of it. for sure.
Yeah, and I think once we saw Silver Surfer, like okay, I feel like we found our rhythm. We're going on the adventure and stuff. I felt like it took a little while to hit that. So I also appreciated the humor in the movie that they're I had someone I had seen on social media, someone who works in like childbirthing, and said, the baby birthing scene out in space was unrealistic, but it was completely made up for by the hilarity and accuracy of four geniuses not being able to put the car seat in the car.
Oh, that was so good. Yeah. That's one of the things. One of the things I really liked about this, because it's one of the things that at first I loved about Marvel and then got sick of, is that they intentionally put in lots of just ridiculous jokes that were over the top. Like they would literally do setups for one-liners. And comic book wise, at first I was pretty happy about it, but then it got to be so overkill that it was just in everything all the time. And it was, these jokes felt real. They felt honest. They felt like the kind that when you're sitting around the table with your family or at a church dinner, that naturally people throw out funny lines to each other and kind of enjoy company by creating humor around it. Most of them felt like real lived in jokes rather than intentionally written setup jokes. And I loved that about this. Loved it.
Yeah, and it was a more serious movie, so I thought some lighthearted moments really helped the movie as well. Okay,
Agreed.
so I want to ask you one last question, because we're almost at the end of this segment, and this is the real question I want to ask. So the real question everyone's been talking about: which is better, Fantastic Four or Superman? Where do you land on that?
I have a, not surprisingly, two-sided answer. I enjoyed Fantastic Four slightly more. Superman's the better movie. Again, going back to my barber today, he has seen neither. And we were talking. And I was like, man, both of these, I promise you, it's worth catching on the IMAX. But then he was like, okay, all right, great. I'm thinking about taking he's got 3 kids, 2 are overseas, 1 is still living at home. And he's like, I'm thinking about taking my girl. Which one should we go see first? And I was like, this hurts me to say. Go see Superman first, man. Superman is everything superhero movies should be. It is so good. And I said, also hear me say, Fantastic Four is now one of my top 5 Marvel movies, and they've made like 37 movies. So it's a really good movie, and I enjoyed it so immensely. Like I said, I've seen it 3 times, and I liked it better each time I watched it. I liked it a little bit better each time. I truly did. Not true with Superman. I loved Superman to start with. I liked it each time I saw it. Didn't like it more. But Fantastic Four really grew on me. There was a lot more to catch that was in there. It was a little thicker, I think. So I caught more things and enjoyed it more. But I have to say, for me, Superman is the better movie.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed Fantastic Four more. How about you? Where do you land?
So I liked Superman better. I liked both of them. I thought they both did a good job of creating a real feel, and it was unique. They were both unique movies, and I appreciate the environment. I'm always there for retrofuturism, and so I was really into that. And
right?
Fantastic Four. I wish I had seen Fantastic Four first. Before Superman. I wish it had come out first, because I think that might I think my expectations going into Fantastic Four were so high that
makes sense.
That I don't think it was possible to live up to. And I think just because I was so into Superman. But overall, I mean, if we're looking at 2025 for superhero movies this summer, I mean, this has been a seminal year for superhero movies. We really lucked out, and you can't go wrong with either one of them. It's a both and, definitely not an either or. But
100%.
Yes.
Don't pick one over the other. Don't pick one over the other. Go see both.
Go see both. That's right. Absolutely. And enjoy both of them. Enjoy both of them for what they are. And try not to compare them in the way that I just did. So I love this. I've got a lot of other stuff I'd love to talk about, but we've also got to talk about theology and politics.
Indeed.
So why don't we take a break and back for our Theopolitico segment.
Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
Welcome to the Theopolitico segment of the show, where we're going to dig in a little bit on some of the theological and political subjects that came up for us while watching this. And I say came up for us, but I'm actually going to start off with a question that comes from a friend of mine, a very close friend, Jim O'Gara, whose family is Jewish. And he pointed out to me that, Jack Kirby and Stan Lee are Jewish. Ben Grimm, based a lot on Jack Kirby, and I love that they gave him kind of the tip of the hat at the end of the it was about time that he was more fully recognized. I love what they did with that. But out of that, the thing was actually based on the Jewish mythology of the golem. Are you familiar with the Jewish theology of the golem?
Yes.
Yes. So the golem in Jewish, mythology is a creature that's formed out of earth or clay. So the thing makes a lot of sense, right? Although it tends to be more clay than the stony, rocky outer face of Ben Grimm. But it's there for to protect Jewish folks from violence and persecution. But it's also this weird kind of symbol of empowerment, but also of tragedy, because it's a golem. It's a little weird. It's a little like outside of the norm. So I'm wondering if you could discuss what does that mean within the movie, and Ben's interaction with the world and how the world sees him and how he sees himself, how that might play into it. And then I got another follow-up question after that.
Okay. Yeah. So in the movie, I mean, I think it's pretty clear. We've got this subplot that's not really ever fleshed out, but I think that's okay, because I think it really helps carry the emotional weight of what's happening, where he's got this interaction with the school teacher, and it's clear there's a connection there. But he also seems very cognizant of the fact that he is a thing, right? A rock creature here that in many ways it feels like he's been robbed of his humanity in exchange for this strength that he's been given. And so certainly, as we're when we think about Jewish identity of that in exactly the way that you've talked about, this thing that's supposed to protect while also being robbed of its humanity.
Yeah.
And so I think that played out well in the movie, because part of me said, well, we didn't really resolve this thread, nothing really happened there. And so I was both kind of frustrated with that, but also thought, well, but that's in part because that's something that doesn't ever really resolve for him. That's something that he constantly lives with. So I could say more about then how that applies to modern Jewish identity, but you've got another question, and maybe that's what it's about.
To a small degree, it is.
Okay.
I'm wondering if the thing's story could sort of be heard and read as a critique of how society dehumanizes those that don't fit the mold. And certainly being Jewish in American society could be seen that way to some degree in terms of how it's treated. So I'm curious, do you think can it be seen as sort of a critique at how humanity dehumanizes those who don't fit the mold?
Sure, I think so. And I think it also gives light to how people in minority communities might feel, particularly when they are interacting with the dominant culture. right? That you might feel as though you stick out like this, or that you're in a living dream or something, like you're
Right.
interacting with the world but not really fully a part of it. And so I really think that that is the kind of the tragedy of the thing, that we get to see what that is like in his life. And so actually in the movie, I really kind of, I felt that, as he
Yeah.
was walking around on the streets, I felt that solemnness. And they didn't name it. It wasn't a heavy-handed message. It was just something that was intrinsic within the movie that I became aware of. I'm like, oh, it would be
hmm
really hard to be this guy. And they didn't even say anything about it. It was just the way that they filmed it, the way that they wrote it. And certainly I think that, minority communities right now, especially with increased oppression, increased legislation targeting marginalized communities, when folks feel like they have to be extra careful when they're engaging
Yeah.
the dominant culture, I think that yeah, you might always feel like you're the odd person out. I mean,
Yeah. In the comics, they play that up a whole lot more about how he doesn't feel like he fits in.
mhm,
Um, and it's made a clearer deal of it. And I think it's really interesting. I mean, in the movie, I didn't catch it as clearly until the second viewing. There's this moment he's out at night, and he's in his trench coat. He wears his trench coat so he doesn't draw so much attention. He wears a hat so
right.
he doesn't draw so much. That's comically accurate what he does. But he's looking at a television through a glass
Mhm.
storefront, and on it it's him and Mr. Fantastic Reed before they become the Fantastic Four, and they're talking, and Reed says something about the best pilot, and he says back to Reed, the best looking, maybe, and then the camera changes focus, and from the television of him saying that to the reflection of his rocky face
Mm,
in the
mhm,
glass, and it
mhm.
was that
Yeah,
moment where I went, okay, I like what we're doing here. I like the way
yeah,
that they're showing the contrast and his outsiderism that he
yeah.
feels. I
Mm,
also
mhm.
love the way this was written um, by Kirby and Stan Lee, in that he is the least human looking,
Yeah.
but he's sort of the moral center, the heart of the family. And in some ways, he's the most human of them all, which I think should be a very big lesson to us when we look and see the folks that we say don't, fit in,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
recognize whatever your external reasoning for saying that or believing that about a person, that who they are and the way that they act and their moral center and the way that they engage is the most important thing that we need to be paying a lot more attention to. It's one of the reasons I absolutely love that character. I think it's just this beautiful contrast of that. The least human looking, but the kind of the most human of them all in terms of being the heart and sometimes the moral center, and the most emotional in a very human way as well. He has swings, and I just love that about him. Let's continue on. One of the things I found kind of surprising about this
Mhm.
movie, and that I don't hear more people talking about it because it's so unbelievable, is how the entire earth trusts Reed in telling them to turn the lights off, and everybody does it. I'm curious, what does that say about faith, about how society can blindly follow, and maybe what does it teach us about discerning following today? Uh,
Yeah,
which is unbelievable, right? Literally
yeah, I mean,
unbelievable.
they're willing to turn off all their power, and they're willing to trust this dude that, yeah, it's cool to just transport the earth from one side of the universe to the other side, and hey, don't worry, it'll all work out. I mean, I'm, you know, here in universe, we've seen them save the earth multiple times, which I'm sure is what has built up the trust in universe. But I mean, we can't. Mark, it's hard to get people to agree on a time for a meeting or something like that, let alone try
Right.
to turn off all your lights or whatever. I think, though, whenever we've got people who display certain characteristics as leaders, and I mean, not necessarily good characteristics, but when people display characteristics that encourage people to follow them. For instance, Trump and MAGA, right? So whenever they are able to get people to follow, then there is sometimes a point where you place all your trust in that person and are willing
Mhm.
to follow blindly. And so it's dangerous, I think, whenever we get to a point where we're willing to put all of our faith in a single human being. And because human beings are always going to let you down. And I hate to break it to y'all, but I mean, we're all human beings. We're all gonna fail, all gonna fall short. But I think that's one of the really dangerous things about moving away from democracy towards fascism, is that
Yeah.
that you can't put all your faith in a single person. I also think, just if we're talking about faith in a single person, that's also why it's important to develop a different theology of Jesus, rather than a savior for who had died for our sins and is believe in Jesus and everything's right.
Absolutely.
I think that's dangerous too. That it's better if we see Jesus as an exemplar of our faith, rather than the end all be all of it. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think they missed. I think this was a missed opportunity in the movie to just have everyone so blindly following. It felt like that gave us there was this opportunity for societal critique that needed to happen, where we could ultimately get to the point where everyone does, but to show the real conflict and why people might not want to show the negotiating. I feel like that's more authentic, and it also helps us arrive at a more healthy perspective of following leadership. If we could have seen that, like
Yeah.
seeing authentic community struggling within itself, trying to figure out, should we do this? Why should we do that? How do we do this? Why do we trust them? Do we give them this kind of power? Like, I think that kind of dialogue would have been healthy and it would have made me buy into it a little bit more. Because it did feel it was it was one of two of the things that I felt just were completely unbelievable about the movie. And I'm holding the other one back for my make me
For the
look
question.
stupid question. So that's the perfect segue into our next segment of the show. We don't want to. I've got 4 or 5 more questions here, but we don't want to keep going. If we did that, we'd have to miss out on the make me look stupid section, which is our favorite section. We don't want to miss out on that. So we're going to take a quick drop, and we'll be back on the other side with make me look stupid.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We're entering our final segment, the Make Me Look Stupid segment. And in the segment, we might try to ask a question to make our co-host look stupid. We might ask a question about something that we don't understand. We might feel stupid about something, or we might want a prediction. And so let's see, Mark, I think this time I want to. I think I just want to ask another question. I want to ask another theopolitical question
Yeah,
that I
absolutely.
was thinking about in the movie. Just playing on the questions we were just talking about. We've got them uniting against a common enemy and problem. And unbelievable though it may be, the world unites against this common enemy and comes up with a plan that ultimately fails, and they have to rely on their heroes to defeat the big
Mhm.
bad. But I'm curious, Mark, in our world today, is there a problem or an enemy big enough that can unite everybody together for the common good, particularly in a time when it feels like we are divided on almost everything, including what the problems are and who the enemies are.
Um, not in the way that the movie portrays everyone being on board,
Yeah.
but we are definitely seeing the early stages right now of folks uniting against Trump. Around the world in particular, but even within the US, we're beginning to see a fallout within the MAGAs themselves, um, in terms of saying he's not doing what I elected him for. There's things that are coming to light that I don't feel positive about. So I think he's about as close as we have right now, and probably as close as we're going to get for anything. And the more strange he gets, and the more outrageous his choices are, I think the more we're going to see people fully uniting behind him and saying, we're going to do things that we might not normally do collectively because we find him to be a threat. Um, you know, you get people who are going to trounce on you for making the comparison, but we're at the point that the comparison isn't unrealistic. One of the things that I think we have to our advantage is that there are still people alive who remember Nazi Germany, and remember Hitler, and know what that looked like and what it did to the world and what it did to a whole class of people. Turns out a whole class of people who have a lot to do with comics and comic book writings and Fantastic Four in general. And because of it, I think we're seeing more willingness just out of historic memory, folks standing up and saying, nope, we're not going to deal with this. Well, do you see anything other than that? Is there other things that might unite us? I mean, I wish I could say that it's global warming that's going to reunite us, because it should. We've had that chance, and I don't feel like it's happening.
I mean, I'm hopeful that eventually we can all unite against this clear terror. I'm concerned because so many people don't see him as a terror. But I do think you're right that when we see people like Tucker Carlson saying, "Hey, he's gone too far," on like when we've got people like that saying that he's crossed lines, it does make me hopeful that yes, maybe people will finally come to their senses and say, we cannot do this anymore. So I'm hopeful about it. I think you're also right that clearly, whenever you've got the White House press office releasing statements that reek of like The Handmaid's Tale, like that I think that we're definitely headed down a path that is similar to Nazi Germany, and we are in Nazi Germany in the 30s right now. And so I hope that if people can see that we can unite against this common enemy. I also think, Mark, just on the left in particular, I think we've got to find ways to not be such purists about everything, about having to agree on every little thing to work together, because that just isn't getting us anywhere, right? We've got to find our points of commonality and say, hey, look, we may not agree on this issue, but can't we all agree about this other one? And I think if
you and I have actually done work outside of the podcast, trying to figure out how do we get people together and come up with the list of the things that we all can 100% agree on, all can get behind, and all start using our social media loudspeakers to broadcast over and over again, something the right does very, very well. But like you said, we have this sort of purist kind of intention, which is weird to say that about the left. But that if I don't want to be associated with folks who aren't fully on board with all the things I do. Oh, I can't stand up against the detention camps with those folks, because those folks don't think the Trinity is real. I mean, it's absurd, right?
Yes. Or I mean, even social issues like say Gaza, right? I mean, I think this has been a division, and I mean, between a lot of folks on the left who, I mean, there are that it's just hard. And so, I mean, that like there are those of us who have been very outspoken in support of Palestinians, right? And then that has also cost relationships with some other progressive folks who are less
Yeah.
supportive of that. And so, how is it that we hold that tension while also working together on immigration issues or LGBTQ plus inclusion or things like that? And it's hard. But thank you, Mark. I
Yeah.
appreciate your insight into that.
I don't know if that was a lot of insight, but certainly my opinion. And you know that I am always glad to offer an opinion. So here's my question. The
Yeah.
other piece that just felt unbelievable, and it comes from my background of I grew up in a house with a father who's an electrician who bought me kits to
Okay,
teach me
yeah.
how to build radios and how to
Okay.
do make
You're already
electric-
outside my field of experience.
make
I get
electricity,
you.
like
Yes.
make connections. So the
Yeah.
basic thing here is in order to take something from point A
Yes.
and send it to point B,
Yeah.
you need a transmitter and a receiver. So the first time
No
he
receiver.
transports that egg,
He's got a receiver there.
it's sitting on the transporter, and he takes and stretches his stretchy arm with the receiver that
Yeah.
has 3 coils that look just like the 3 coils on the transmitter
Yeah.
and sends the egg. How in the world was he going to move the world somewhere without putting receivers out there? He just blasting it off. You have to have
Mark.
an identifiable spot that shows where it's going to sit.
Mark,
What the
come on.
Point
He
B
did the
is.
math. He did the math. Mark, didn't you see all the stuff on the chalkboard?
It's
And
not the math.
and he can stretch, man. And so he was
He can
going
s-
to just
He could have
he's gonna take-
stretched to the end of the
he-
universe and set up its.
he just stretch or the end of the universe. He's gonna have like 4. He's gonna have like one huge thing in one hand and one in the other, like stretch it all the way to the end of the universe, and then it would just go, and he just like, and then once
That's
the Earth
how
was
it's gonna
gone,
work.
He'd just spring because he'd be holding on to the other stuff.
He
He'd
just-
spring to the
Boom!
yeah, and he'd be there.
I don't know, man. I have to say,
You don't think so?
it was one of the things that bugged me after the first time I watched the movie. I was like, wait a minute. He didn't have receivers. He didn't. And then I went, okay, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he transported the egg and didn't need receivers. He's figured out somehow he's Reed Richards. He can do whatever. He's figured something out.
Yeah.
So, okay, maybe that's what's going on here. So the next time I'm watching real closely when it's time to transport the egg. And no, he literally grabs the receiver and uses his arm to stretch over to the other table and set it down. I was like, come on. Anyway, that one bothered me, if you can't tell.
Well, good point, Mark. No receiver. It's a good thing their plan didn't work, because who knows where they would have gone. They probably
I don't know how they said. It makes me wonder where Galactus actually ended up, because they got the transmitter and then they're sending him somewhere, but there's no receiver to lock in the position that they're sending him to. He's got to go somewhere. At some point, the line that he rides, whatever that is, the galactic line that he rides, will just kind of deteriorate in energy, and he'll just be there. But
here's Mark.
There's no receiver. He said the edge of the universe, but there's no receiver there.
I think he miscalculated that. He forgot about the receiver, and so but a Reed Richards on an alternate Earth somewhere in the multiverse created the same thing. And so whenever he opened, that is Earth 828's opening to the multiverse, and his miscalculations have sent him to Galactus to the multiverse, and that's how it's going to tie in with the MCU in the future. I'm
trying to figure that out anyway, so that's as good of an answer as any. I'm like, how are we getting to 616, and why are we getting there, and why we've got a new spaceship with 4 wings on it rather than 3, which is what we had in this movie. There's questions to be answered, man. There's questions to be answered. Unfortunately, I think that we got to wait many years before we find the answers.
Well, do you
Damn
think? I mean, do you think Fantastic Four? Do you think this team is going to be in the new? It's got to be in the new Avengers movie, right? Because we see Doctor Doom.
There was a brief period where it looked like Reed Richards was going to be the new Iron Man in terms of who was going to lead the Avengers. Yeah, in the last 2 days, there's been insider reports saying that that's not going to be the case anymore. But that should tell you enough that they are going to be a part of it. And I have to believe that Doctor Doom's part of why that mid-credit scene that we got.
Yeah.
I think that something's going on there that's going to be what I think that scene is going to, in some ways, be the impetus of why the Fantastic Four end up going to Earth 616, which is the Marvel world that we mostly know. I think it's got to be related to that.
Because we see them at the end of Thunderbolts coming on.
Yeah. Well, we see a 4-winged Fantastic Four ship.
So you think it's going to be a different one?
We have no idea who's on that ship.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the Fantastic Four. I think if I'm having to venture a guess, and this is a wild ass guess because there's certainly nothing in comic books about it, and they haven't laid down much logic to give you a real hint. I think maybe. So in the comics, Doom and Galactus work together. At some point, Galactus actually becomes the Herald of Doom. And they all got this cosmic juice that they're using. And Franklin has it. So I feel like Doom's going to do something with Franklin that's going to take Franklin to 616. And the rest of the Fantastic Four are going to go there to recover Franklin.
I like it.
That'd be kind of my best guess. I'm not sure though. There's
I like it. I can't wait to see. And I hope
me either. I just wish it was sooner.
Yeah, I know. And I hope this is a steadier path because I want to love Marvel movies again. So,
Agreed.
As I have been for the last 3 months since we got Thunderbolts and
Thunderbolts and this is so hopeful. I don't think they're going to because of how big Avenger movies are, but it'd be great if they took the lessons from those two and applied them to the rest of the films going forward. We would be in such great. It is clear that James Gunn has DC taken care of. DC is going to be brilliant, which I love. But we still got some work to do on Marvel.
That's right, because we want all the movies we can get as long as they're good. And so we want to find that sweet spot on the curve where we're getting the maximum number of movies of the highest quality. If we get too many movies, we don't want to go to quality. Exactly. And we also don't want like 2 movies a year or whatever. We want movies.
No,
we want them to be good. Yeah.
I like 2 to 3 movies from each studio a year.
Yeah, that works.
Plus serials, plus television shows.
Yeah. But we want those to be good too.
All of them good. All of them good. So, well, that's great, Mark. It's been fun to talk about Fantastic Four, and I love that that we got both in the month of July. We got the releases of Superman, Fantastic Four. Just a great month. So much fun to talk about too. And you and I were kind of chatting before this about what we might do to try and follow up with these, and we realized, well, there's not really anything that's gonna. You're not going to follow these with anything that's good.
No,
but you just can't. There's not going to be anything that measures up to these in this moment.
No, there's not. So we kind of talked about it and decided that maybe we would just go with something that we know might be fun, but maybe not the best movie, right?
Exactly.
So how about another franchise? Jurassic World. Jurassic World Rebirth has come out, and I've heard that it's entertaining and it's fun. And
I've heard it's not completely bad.
So that's it. That's the sweet spot. After some great movies, let's go watch something that's not completely bad, that still might be a fun ride. And,
absolutely.
It's got Scarlett Johansson.
I like the way you think, and I do think, that's nothing wrong with a movie that's just over the top and fun, and we're probably ready for that because let's be honest, with DC and Marvel, you and I both are going to analyze it so deeply that it takes like the first time I went to see Fantastic Four, I was like, all right, I already knew at that point that I was going to see it a second time. I'd already booked the ticket. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to just watch the movie for the movie. I get to watch my Fantastic Four, and I'm not going to I'm not going to analyze it. I'm not going to think about politics. I'm not going to think about theology. I'm just going to be washed over with the movie. And I got to say, I loved it. I loved getting to do that. And sometimes with a movie like
you were able to do
World.
Good. That's what I was going to ask you. Did you allow yourself to actually do that once you
mostly, not 100%. Like I said, there was the whole transporting the egg thing that immediately went, wait a minute, how are they going to transmit or receive it?
They could have pulled that one over on me, Mark.
There's nothing wrong.
I would have been like,
Jurassic World.
Jurassic World.
Yeah,
Jurassic
that one
World
just bothered me. Yeah, it's one of those where we can just go and kind of have fun, and that's a good thing. So we talk about this from time to time. People need to learn to just have fun at the. Sometimes a movie is just meant. It's not meant to be perfect. It's not meant to have everything perfectly aligned. It's just meant to entertain you.
Yes.
You know.
Yes, and I'm ready for that. So if you all haven't seen Jurassic World, why don't you go see it and allow yourself to be entertained, and maybe go ahead and just click off the analyzing feature in your brain, and we'll come back and we'll analyze the heck out of it.
There you go.
Next week.
There you go.
Thank you all for being here.
It.
We appreciate you all. Grateful that you all have tuned in. We love doing this each week, and we can't wait to see you next time on the Moonshine Jesus Show.
Moonshine